rising up the middle. He's in! Utah leads. Daniels for the win. Caught! It's gone! LSU does it! Mason Taylor!
Hey everybody, I am Colin Bashnagel here with another video. It's been a couple of days, but guess what, guys? Be on the lookout. You can check out my Twitch, BashTLN. That's what it's going to be called. No underscores, no nothing. It's just a capital B, capital TLN. It's BASCHTLN. That's all you got to search on Twitch to be able to get it. So make sure you guys tune in to that. And then also, we are going to have a lot on the Lowdown Network here coming up here. We got Lowdown CFB tomorrow at 6 o'clock, Sundays at 6 o'clock, Wednesdays at 6 o'clock. Make sure you tune into all of that. We got a fantasy draft for college football coming up. We're going to try to organize something with the NFL as well, but there's, NBA, WNBA, then there's college basketball coming in, and now we have college football to really add an element of, just love for all of the sports that we do. So make sure you like and subscribe here and check out what we have going on there. And as you can see down there, Bash's CFB show on TikTok. Make sure you look me up. But without any further ado, we are going to get into the Clemson Tigers preview. Let's get straight into it. So the Clemson Tigers are coming off of a season where they had their ups and downs. It looked for a little bit like they were back, but then they got blown out against Notre Dame, only lost for a little while. They were ranked number 8 with an outside shot of making the playoff until they lost to their arch rival, the South Carolina Gamecocks. They ended up getting beat against Tennessee in the Orange Bowl, but will they have a bounce back year? They brought in Garrett Riley from TCU. He was the offensive coordinator behind their Cinderella run. Let's not forget that. We're going to talk about players leaving here for the Clemson Tigers off of last year's team, starting with the key departures to the NFL. Offensively, they lost tight end Davis Allen, wide receiver Joseph Ngata, and then Jordan McFadden, offensive guard, and then also Justin Ross. I do want to point that out there, but for the most part, they just had a ton of guys come back on the offensive side of the ball, but we are going to talk about what else they lost in the transfer portal too. Now, defensively, they lost a few key players specifically on the defensive line. KJ Henry, gone. Miles Murphy, gone. Their 2 dominant edge rushers are gone. Brian Brzee, gone. An interior player. Trenton Simpson, experienced linebacker, gone. And then their kicker, BT Potter, finally gone. He's been at Clemson forever. Nothing against him, but that's where they are right there. Now, transferring out, you have quarterback DJ Uiagalelei going out to Oregon State. You also have Billy Wiles going to Southern Miss, another quarterback on roster. Kobe Pace going over with Tony Elliott over to Virginia. And then wide receivers, Dakari Collins, who's leaving for NC State, and EJ Williams leaving for Indiana. Big pickup for Tom Allen and the Indiana Hoosiers. On the defensive side of the ball, an interior guy, Edinoza Rubin, who we talked about in the Georgia Tech video, is going to Georgia Tech. Then edge rusher Kevin Swint is going to Georgia State. 2 linebackers left. Vontae Bentley going to Colorado. We already talked about Colorado. And then Sergio Allen, another linebacker, going to Cal. Finally, safety Malcolm Green going to Virginia, and Fred Davis, a cornerback, going to UCF. All right, guys. Now we're going to talk about transferring in. Paul Tyson, Arizona State quarterback. All right. Now we're going to talk about this current team. Now, before we get into the Clemson Tigers' current roster, again, I want you guys to just realize that I'm going to be doing a ton of videos this upcoming week, a ton of videos this summer. So if you don't mind, it's this corner right here. You see that playlist? Click on it. Check out what we have to offer right there on this channel. All right. So we know that you got your quarterback in Cade Klubnik. Now, as far as depth at quarterback, there's a reason why they brought in Paul Tyson. They needed some depth there. Hunter Helms is back, and Christopher Vizina is a first-year freshman, but Paul Tyson really gives you a little bit more comfort in case anything were to happen to Klubnik. Now, Will Shipley and Phil Maffa are both back. I was not impressed, of course, with their last couple of recruiting cycles. Keith Adams Jr. is a guy who might be able to take a step up, but those two junior running backs, beyond them, they don't have too much proven depth. That's a little bit of a concern, but those two are good starting too, with Will Shipley being one of the best running backs in America. Now, at the wide receiver position, you have Bo Collins back, and then Antonio Williams, I think, is going to be a great player. Fantastic guy to run out of the slot. He can play a little bit outside, but I think that he's going to take the ACC by storm. I also think Adam Randall could have a pretty big year. Now, you have Troy Stellato coming back. Cole Turner is in for a second year, and Brandon Spector is back. He's been there for a very long time. Will Taylor as well. So not super deep at wide receiver, but I do like that this is a little bit more of a diversified group at the wide receiver position than in years past as far as skill set. Antonio Williams' skill set is different than Bo Collins, and Bo Collins is different than Adam Randall. Now at tight end, the Clemson Tigers bring back Sage Ennis, but also Jake Brenningstool, who's probably going to be the starter there at tight end. I really like Brenningstool. I'm curious to see what Sage Ennis is able to bring to the table as well. Offensive line-wise, there's still some concern. I like this interior a whole lot with Marcus Tate and Walker Parks as the two tackles in the center. Will Putnam, we know he's a really good player. Tristan Lee and Blake Miller take over the tackle spots. Left tackle, a massive concern right now for this offense. Now, will this defense drop off a cliff? In my opinion, not quite yet. Tyler Davis is going to be back. Rook Ororo, I think is actually how you say it. And I'm not like, I know I sound stupid, but that's just how it goes there. Justin Maskell back. Xavier Thomas back. They've been in the program a little while for sure. Now, again, something that Clemson has had in the past, depth. That is a concern for me on the defensive line. You lost 3 starters. You have guys that you've heard of like Davis, Ororo, and Thomas all back, Maskell back. These guys we've heard of, but who's going to be those guys that step up despite the fact we haven't heard of them? TJ Parker, probably the highest rated recruit, if I remember correctly, that they got. Maybe he's a guy who can make some plays, but overall, and Cade Denhoff is back too. Peyton Page is back, but overall, not a whole lot of depth there. Now, I really like what they have at linebacker as well. Wade Woodez is a guy I think is going to have a pretty big year. Jeremiah Trotter is a massive, massive help in the middle of that defense at middle linebacker. And Barrett Carter, a guy to watch out for as well. This linebacker starting 3 is pretty good. Kobe McLeod, TJ Dudley, and Khalil Barnes are probably going to be the backups. Again, depth, a little bit of a concern. And you're seeing this is why Clemson needs to use the transfer portal. When you lose, how many is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 guys to the portal, bringing in one quarterback, that's not going to cut it. Now, the secondary, really, really good, pretty deep for sure. Sheridan Jones, Andrew Mukupa, pardon me, Clemson fans. Jalen Phillips is also back. He's the biggest one in the secondary that I really like. Sheridan Jones is pretty good too. I think Nate Wiggins is a really good player as well. Toriano Pride is back. RJ Mickens is back. Tyler Venables and Jaden Lucas, they have more experience in that secondary than other spots on their team. Now, let's talk about breakout players for this team. As place kicker, by the way, Robert Gunn is probably going to take over. I have no idea how good that kid's going to do. Aiden Swanson going to be the punter there. So you have Antonio Williams and Adam Randall, who I think are both going to break out and have big years in this Garrett Riley system. And I really think that if Clemson can stay healthy, this offense is going to be very prolific. Not the best offensive line, but serviceable enough, especially with a very good interior. And then on defense, I do think Wade Woodez is going to hit the ground running as a starter. I think he's definitely talented enough to do it. And I think as far as breakout players go, those 3 are the guys to watch out for this Clemson team. I'm very curious to see if, they end up having struggles because of the depth on the defense, if defense maybe is not as good as it has been in years past, but doesn't need to be if the offense is as explosive as it had been. prior to these last couple of years of just bad play. So we're going to get straight into the schedule prediction. So let's get into it here. I'm going to make myself just a little bit bigger. I forgot to do that last video. So they start on the road at Duke. Now, this to me is going to tell me what this Clemson team is, because I do have questions about Clemson, and Duke is a really good team. I do not think they have the talent to be able to stick, though. I think Clemson goes in there on that opening Monday, Labor Day. I think they end up winning a close one against a good Duke team, and that's when they start figuring things out. Charleston Southern should be an easy dub. Now, don't sleep too much on Florida Atlantic. I think they're going to be a pretty improved program this year with Tom Herman coming in, Casey Thompson going to take the quarterback reins. We're going to have Conference USA. I know they're in the American right now, but we're going to have the G5s previewed. Conference USA is right around the corner. That is going to come up in a couple of videos. But with that being said, guys, I'm going to take Clemson to win this game. Again, don't sleep through this. This might be a game that it's a 3-point game entering the fourth quarter at 23-20, and everybody's going to be raising an eyebrow. And they have Florida State coming into town. I think getting them at home is a huge deal. The big question I'm going to have for Clemson, how healthy are they going to be going into that game? Is their defense going to be where it needs to be? I think it will be, plus the offensive explosiveness is going to be on display more than it had been at this point in the season, more than it has been really since that 2020 team with Travis Etienne and Trevor Lawrence. I'm going with a win against Florida State in that game, a win against Florida State in that game. Close game. The two best teams easily as far as odds go in the ACC, but getting them at home is a big deal. Now, at Syracuse, could I see this going the other way? Yes, I could see it going the other way. They have struggled with Syracuse in the past, but I am a little bit concerned about the Syracuse team. They have a lot to replace on both sides of the ball. Their defense is not going to be nearly as good as it was last year, and that defense was really containing a Clemson offense last year that won't look or didn't look the way it will this year. I think that Clemson is able to go into the JMA Wireless Dome, got to get used to that, I guess, and win against Syracuse. I also think they beat Wake Forest. That game was awesome last year. Wake Forest just could not stop a nosebleed on defense. I don't expect for the defense to be much better for Wake Forest, and you got to expect a little bit of a drop-off offensively for Wake Forest, even if you're a guy like me who says, hey, I'm going to put the trust in Dave Clawson in this Wake Forest offense to be able to click. Even if you do believe that, do you believe that they'll be able to slow down Clemson? I don't. So coming off the bye, I think they beat Miami before going on the road and losing at NC State. Now, the win against Miami's really talented, and that could easily go the other way. But again, it's off a bye, and I just don't trust Miami. I mean, we talked about this. We talked about the Hurricanes on the Lowdown CFB on Wednesday, and I think that was a fun conversation to have. I talked about their talent. I talked about what they could potentially do. Doesn't mean I believe they're going to do it. But then at NC State, a lot of Clemson fans are like, we hate NC State. Dabo hates Dave Doeren. Why are you picking this game? And the answer is because I think that hatred is, number one, overrated, and number two, that is sandwiched right in between two pretty big games, especially if Miami has some early season success. Going on the road at Miami and having a revenge game against Notre Dame the following week, I think that's going to be a really, really tough spot for the Clemson Tigers to have to deal with at NC State, who I think is an underrated team with Brennan Armstrong coming in at quarterback. I think they might not be great, but I think they could be good enough to, bottom line is this: they didn't lose an entire coaching staff. The one coach that they lost, it was probably a good thing that they lost him. So you can hate it all you want, Clemson fans, but you got to listen to what I'm saying about this. Now, Notre Dame, I think this is going to be a really tough game, even in Memorial Stadium. I think that Notre Dame might just be the better team, especially at this point in the season, especially if football happens and Clemson isn't super healthy. But at the end of the day, the home environment, last time I recall Notre Dame going down there, wasn't that game where it came down to a 2-point conversion? Let me know, Clemson fans, if Notre Dame has come up to Clemson since then. I know the last 2 times they played was 2020 and 2022, and both of them were in South Bend. I guess you have the ACC championship in Charlotte, but whatever. I'm going to take Clemson to win another close game. I think this is, probably 3 or 4 close games on this schedule with Duke, Florida State, one of the 2, Wake Forest and Syracuse potentially being close, Notre Dame. Like, I could see 3 or 4 close games at this point that are nail biters that Clemson pulls off. And I also see a nail biter loss against NC State there. I am higher than most people on Georgia Tech, but I do not think they have the firepower and the talent to be able to stick with Clemson. I talked about Georgia Tech, I believe, 2 videos ago in video number 11. So Georgia Tech, there you go. That's a win. And then North Carolina, I vocalized this with the Georgia Tech video. I don't think North Carolina is going to be that good of a team. Their defense has not shown signs of improvement. Their offense lost a ton as far as weapons for Drake May to throw the ball to and distribute the ball to. And even though I love Drake May, even though I think this North Carolina offense could still score some points, I don't think they're going to be as effective. I don't think they're going to have a great year. And finally, at South Carolina, I have you returning the favor in beating South Carolina in Williams-Brice. But again, close game. Now, South Carolina got gutted in the transfer portal. They have some good players. They have some talent. But again, I'm not sure how good this team is going to be based on the fact that they have a lot of unknowns that a lot of people aren't talking about. So with the over-under of 9.5 wins, 11-1 is the record I'm giving for Clemson. That makes me a little bit nervous to play it simply because does Vegas know something that we do not? But the answer is basically plain as day. They are maybe not going to be favored against Florida State. Notre Dame is going to be pretty close to a pick-em. Duke is going to be a tough spot for them. And, expecting them to drop another additional game outside of those 2, and then at South Carolina, maybe preseason-wise, we're a little bit high on South Carolina. I would say probably play over 9.5, but that is far from the lock of the century to me. That is far from like Kansas levels of, hey, Kansas at 5.5 wins, they're making a bowl game. Play the over. Like I'm not as convinced that Clemson is going to be able to absolutely, run their way through the regular season and get double-digit wins in the regular season. But I am pretty confident that Clemson is going to, at the very least, be 10-2, 11-1, 7-1 in conference play. That's going to probably be good enough to make the conference championship. Not probably, it will be, because even if that one loss is to NC State, I mean, you could have a 3-way tie at the top, but I'm just going to give you a little bit of a spoiler alert. There's no 3-way tie for me at the top of the conference. So with that being said, thank you guys for tuning in. I really appreciate it. Check out that TikTok, like I said, for minute versions of these predictions. And I hope you guys have a great 4th of July and a great weekend. I'll be here a lot of your weekend. So for that, let's have a great holiday.